Principle for the Cherokee Worldview and environmental.
Thank you. As a historical ethnobotanist, I end up looking a lot of the ethnohistorical literature, and you see some common threads that are running through it. And this talk actually stemmed from an aha moment I had at a talk I was giving from a Cherokee friend of mine. And it was on Native Americans and environment, so a little bit of that's coming here. Next slide, please. Many of you remember this fellow. Those of you of a certain age remember back in the 1970s, a commercial that came out. It was a Earth Day campaign, and this noble savage was paddling up through the creek, and all of a sudden there was trash floating on the water, and as he stepped out onto the land, trash was thrown, and he walked by the highway, and trash was thrown at his feet. And he turned, and a single tear came down his cheek. And that, for a lot of us, was an introduction to Native American environmentalism. And it turned out that this guy's real name was Asperagina de Corti. He was from Italian immigrants, and he wasn't even Indian, but he played one on TV and was really good and role. Next slide, please. And then, of course, we went to college, and we had these posters on the wall of the Chief Seattle speech, which turned out was really the speech Chief Seattle gave. It was translated several times, and then most of the attributes were inserted in a speechwriter by a speechwriter and film on ecology. So we get these ideas, and this, again, next slide. We get leftover romantic images from the 18th, 19th century of the noble savage and all that. Next slide. So there is a lot of discussion now about limiting this Native American view of the environment to Western ideas of environmentalism are actually remnants of colonialism. And what they do is they reduce very complex relationships with the environment to a simplified romantic image. So what I'm going to do in this talk is look at one concept that of the Cherokee worldview, and I'm not even going to approach the complexity of this concept, but I'm going to do the best I can. This is a working process, and I have some great collaborators. Next slide. So this concept is Duyukdv, and Duyukdv has many glosses, many meanings. It's been glossed as balance, harmony, truth, and in some of the Cherokee dictionaries it would come down as truth, right living, dignity. It's balancing the rights of the individual with the goods of the whole. It's personal freedom within the concept of responsibility to the family, clan, tribe, and place in the world. And it's balancing available resources with the needs of the individual and the group. So one analogy that struck me actually came in an article I was reading about the problems of explaining global climate change. And one of the problems is the idea of what climate is. And this was a climatologist was using the analogy of a pond, of standing water. And he said that climate is like a pond that has actually no activity in it. But we all know there's activity everywhere. There's activity under the water. There are water striders walking across the top. There are frogs jumping in. Maybe the neighbor's teenage daughter's on the swim team, and she'll come over and she'll jump in, and she's very smooth, and she just barely breaks the water. And then her football player brother comes over and does the cannonball. Well, he's like the hurricane. Weather is the disturbance on that pond. And the trouble is that we never have a state where there is no weather in the world to say what climate is. Climate is the average that would happen if there were no weather. If there were no weather, we just talk about seasons. So Duyukdv is like climate. It is that underlying steady state. It is the underlying average of everything that would be if there weren't disturbances. And human beings are one of the main sources of that disturbance. Next, please. So aspects of Duyukdv have been discussed before, again, in the ethnohistorical record, but they're most labeled as the harmony ethic, conservative Cherokee. Some call it the Cherokee ethos or the Cherokee worldview. However, this is usually focused more on personality traits that are inherent in the philosophy. This only begins to approach the full meaning of the concept. And like I said, I won't hit the full meaning, but I'm going to try and hit as many aspects of it as I can. Next, please. So Duyukdv is the guiding principle of how one conducts oneself in the world. Taking more than you needed, again, was seen as a sign of poor character. Hoarding resources was considered even worse and was often a punishable offense. I didn't read the word, I couldn't find the words, and I'll have to talk to my Cherokee speakers about this, but they said there was actually There was a word for being stingy, and there was another word in Cherokee for being stingy with food. So it was considered another whole crime up and above. And it actually, my friend has told me that those who hoarded food could often be, it was often a capital offense, executed for hoarding food. So, Duyukdv is considered an underlying principle that defines much of the Cherokee worldview. It was the basis for clan law. And one example of this is the French and Indian War. There were a group of, the Cherokee had allied themselves with the British during the French and Indian War. And a group had gone up and they were fighting. And when they were coming back, the British hadn't paid them. So on the way home, they stopped to liberate a few horses, to balance things out and get their payment. Well, they were ambushed later by a group, and several of their group were killed. So they had been told by an English officer that all white men were of the same clan. And they said, obviously, we're all of the same clan. He said, well, yeah, we're all Christians, we're all good people. Yeah, we're all the same clan. So they stopped off at a settlement and killed now 19 German settlers because they were just doing clan law. Clan law, if somebody kills a member of your clan, there has to be a balance of somebody of equal stature in the other clan. So, from the European perspective, this was a barbarous act. This was a heinous act of murder. From the Cherokee perspective, they were bringing the world into balance. They were doing clan justice, and if they didn't do that, the universe would be in balance. So it was just two different perspectives on the same act. It was the basis for the structure of some of the townships. Some of the red towns in the 1700s, war towns, white towns were peace towns. And peace was a state of Duyukdv. War was considered anomalous to that. It was an upset of the balance of the way the world should normally be. It was the basis of the medical system, diagnosis and treatment, and who was selected to practice medicine. We see, living in Cherokee, you always see people coming through who claim to be medicine priests and things like that. And in this system of Duyukdv, if you wanted to be a medicine person, you would be unqualified because it was your desire to be one. Someone who would bring, whose responsibility was to bring the world into balance would not be qualified if they wanted to do that. Next slide, please. So I want to look at a little bit about diagnosis and treatment. I stole this off of Virtual Vocals, but I love this picture. Next slide. When a person went to a traditional healer, many of the factors were considered. Was the condition sent by another person, conjurer, witch, malicious spirit? Is the condition due to a natural causes or a broken taboo? Taboo against the fire, taboo with rare or small animals? Is the condition due to an imbalance within the family? Is the condition due to an imbalance within the village? Who gets treated, the individual, the family, the community, depends on the source of the condition. Sometimes you need to bring a bigger than the individual back into balance to balance out the disturbance. Next slide. And when harvesting medicinal plants for medicine, the tradition was that the first plant taken must exhibit a special quality that would indicate that this is the correct plant you're looking for. After that, every fourth plant would be of that particular species can be harvested for medicine for the 70 sacred members of the Cherokee. I work with an extension program, and we taught sustainable harvesting of forest resources. And when I talk to my botanist friends about this idea, the general literature says you can harvest up to 80% of a plant before the populations would be impacted. And when she hears 1 out of 4, she's very pleased. She said, that's much more like it. And something was always left behind, whether it be or tobacco, as an offering for what was taken. Again, this was the reciprocation, this was the balancing, this was the Cherokee concept of the origin of disease and medicine came from a council that was held by the animals. Human beings became much too numerous, and the larger animals were killed for game, the smaller animals were stepped on, and they said, look, if these people keep propagating like they are, we're all going to be wiped out. We just can't have this. So they had a council, and they all got together to decide what they would do. Oh, and by the way, the frog was having trouble seeing, so his friend the snake held him up in council so he could see. That's not very Unfortunately, unlike Bill Clinton, the snake did inhale. So what happened is the plants got together and the plants said, well, look, you know, mankind is the last of us created. He's a little foolish and he doesn't understand things yet. If he comes to us in a sacred way, we'll provide a cure for all the diseases that the animals created. Next slide. This is, again, Tom Belt is one of my collaborators on this, and this is from an article he wrote with on the concept of Tohi. Said, in the Cherokee cosmology, humans are considered anomalous, stuck in the midst of supernatural plants and animals and other beings, guests in a complex spirit world. The spirit animals and plants have a history of their own before humans are introduced, and the role of humans in the universe is that of odd pieces that must fit themselves into an already functioning whole. The already functioning whole is the state of Duyukdv, and it is a human responsibility to bring that into balance. Next slide. There is a relationship to the land, too, that I really didn't understand until I understood this four souls concept. Four souls inhabit different parts of the body. The primary soul is in the head. It leaves immediately upon death. It's related to the fluid saliva. The hepatic soul, the secondary soul, is in the liver. It takes 7 days to depart. Its primary fluid is bile. The third soul is in the heart. Its fluid is the blood. And it takes 1 month for that soul to dissipate. And the fourth soul is in the bones. The fluid is semen or sexual fluids. I just had semen last time, and the ladies did not like that. So, all sexual fluids. It takes 1 year for that soul to dissipate into the ground. So after 1 year, the grave was attended to for a year, and after that, all the spirit was left, but it was into the land. So at the time of Cherokee removal, it was a real part of the trauma was leaving your ancestor spirit that had gone out into the land. And it's also, sorry archaeologists, it's also one of the reasons we work when you get to the grave areas. Next slide. So I want to associate Duyukdv with another concept just very quickly of Tohi. Tohi means, or glosses approximately, as well-being, the proper state of the world. When you greet someone in Cherokee, one of the greetings would be Tohi Goju, which literally means, are things fluid? Are they peaceful? Are they easy? How's it going? Yeah. Things flow when a person makes the choices for right action. This means that the flow of the universe will continue in the proper way. And this is the definition of what health is. This is the idea of Cherokee, of what health is. Next. Tohi is about relationship. It's a relationship with yourself, relationship with your family and clan, relationship with your community, your village, your tribe, relationship with your place in the world, and relationship with the spirit. Without Duyukdv, without this balance, there is no Tohi in well-being. Duyukdv has to be established before there can be well-being. Next. So, the relationship to the natural world is a part of a larger worldview that encompasses a complex theology about humanity's place in the creation and the duties to the tribe, the family or clan, and the self. Next. Ignoring this underlying principle, Duyukdv would be the equivalent of ignoring the Tao in Chinese philosophy or the law of karma in Vedic philosophy. It's an elusive concept, and much like the Tao, it comes to us in poetry because you really can't say what it is. But Duyukdv must be considered when trying to put the ethnographic accounts of Cherokee culture and history into a functional perspective. And I would say that there are concepts like this in, I would say, most cultures, maybe every culture. If you can find that word, and it was so wrapped up in this word that, and I'd heard it described, but I couldn't get it until I got the word. If you fail to do this as anthropologists, next slide. Somewhere in Indian tribes. Next slide, please. I want to thank a couple of people. Tom Belt's a Cherokee language instructor at Western Carolina University, primary collaborator and all around. He's considered, he was elder in residence, but he thought he should be cool blues in residence instead. TJ Holland's cultural resources officer for the Eastern Band, and TJ's one of those people who, whenever I get excited about finding reference to Duyukdv, he says, yeah. So they're very helpful. Thank you very much.
Questions?
Yeah. So I'm wondering, is there a lot of similarity then almost with Hippocratic theories of medicine of the four humors? Does that correlate with the four souls? Is disease a result of blockages of these four souls?
There's a lot of overlap in that,
Uh-huh.
and they seem very similar, but they do come with Cherokee names. So
Well, no, I'm not that they're Hippocratic in origin, but they could share
a lot of the fluids
similar.
are the same. It is very similar. Yes. Yes.
Yeah, just I asked that technology. It's a very striking parallel. I was also thinking of the Navajo concept of whole whole, which various fluids analyze in some detail. It's all about establishing and creating that balance, goodness, truth, etc. It's chiefs of prayer, certain sorts of blessing and ceremonies. So it strikes very.
I think so, and I think it is fairly common throughout. I once asked Tom, wow, do you think this, came from like with the land bridge over the land bridge? He goes, you mean the old country? So.
Thank you.